The city's daily COVID tally tops 4,000 and preventive measures to be stepped up at care homes. Joe Biden says he expects to speak to his Chinese counterpart within the next 10 days. And Russia's military operation in Ukraine now said to be going beyond the Donbas region. Hello and welcome to TVB News. Hong Kong's local COVID case counts topped 4,000 today, the first time since early April. That's on top of some 300 imported infections. As authorities expect the tally to keep rising, new measures are in place to shore up defenses for the city's most frail and vulnerable. Jackie Lin reports.
A new high again for the city's COVID tally, with 4,076 newly reported community infections. Earlier, authorities estimate the daily caseload could reach 6,000. But it will be a slower climb than the previous waves, thanks to wider vaccination coverage and natural immunity among those who got infected earlier.
We have observed a slowly increasing in number, gradually increasing number of confirmed cases over the past few weeks. So the doubling time may take around 2 weeks. We have not yet seen the peak.
The Center for Health Protection added that with just 2/3 of the city's population having been triple vaccinated, the public should get their third jab as soon as possible to ease the impending pressure on the public health system. This as the outbreak in a rehabilitation ward at Kowloon Hospital continues to unfold. 3 more patients tested positive for the coronavirus, bringing the total number of linked cases there to 7. Schools also reported more than 410 cases. Among the latest care homes recently hit by COVID is Park Oi Hospital Jockey Club Care and Attention Home in Cam Tin, with 2 linked cases. To protect the aged and the vulnerable in the city, authorities will strengthen test mandates on residential buildings with a step up in anti-pandemic measures at elderly facilities. Care home visitors will be required to provide proofs of a negative PCR result within 48 hours, starting on August 1st. They also need to have the vaccine pass to enter the elderly facilities after August 28th. Care home staff will also undergo weekly PCR tests instead of being COVID screened every fortnight, beginning next Wednesday.
We are afraid that the care homes, they are populated with frail elderlies, and they may be suffering from more severe cases or even death. That's why we think that increasing frequency of testing among the staff is a good move.
Meanwhile, 3 more COVID patients died. They were all in their 90s and had received 2 doses of COVID vaccine. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
In today's Legislative Council meeting, the city's health chief, Lo Chung-Mao, again emphasized that Hong Kong has its own pandemic situation and should not follow the theories and strategies used in other places.
Under the epidemic, our policies cannot solely rely on theories put forward by foreign experts. We have to consider our population, our vaccination rate, and also the capacity of our healthcare system. We will continue to communicate with the experts. The first meeting will be held very soon, and then we will issue a statement to clarify any misunderstandings.
4 medical experts from the University of Hong Kong, including 2 pandemic advisors to the government, published a paper earlier suggesting that the city's social distancing measures be gradually relaxed this summer. They called on the authorities to achieve a higher level of hybrid immunity acquired from both infection and vaccination before winter. Macau reported 12 new COVID cases, bringing its total number of infections in this pandemic wave to 1,795. Most non-essential industries and commercial companies and venues, including casinos, will be allowed to resume limited operations between the 23rd and 29th of July. Premises still suspended from operating include children's nurseries, shops and malls that cannot be directly accessed from the streets, as well as interior decoration companies. U.S. President Joe Biden says he expects to speak with Chinese leader Xi Jinping within the next 10 days. Biden also says U.S. military officials believe it's not a good idea for House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to visit Taiwan at the moment. Caleb Leung has details.
Late last month, White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said U.S. President Joe Biden is set to speak with Chinese President Xi Jinping. When Biden returned to Washington from a climate-related trip to Massachusetts, he was asked for an update.
Okay. Talk to President Xi soon, sir? I think I'll be talking to President Xi within the next 10 days.
And when you said you're going to speak to President Xi in the next 10 days?
I didn't say that. I said I expect to.
You expect to. What will you tell him about tariffs?
I'll tell him to have a good day. No.
The long-discussed call between the two leaders would be their first in 4 months. The dialogue would come at a crucial moment as the Biden administration weighs cutting import duties on goods from China to help reduce inflation pressures on American consumers. Aside from the possible talks, Biden also responded to a trip to Taiwan reportedly planned by U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
Mr. President, do you think it's a good idea for Speaker Pelosi to travel to Taiwan this summer?
Well, I think that the military thinks it's not a good idea right now, but I don't know what the status of it is.
Plans for the trip were reported by the Financial Times, which also said the White House had expressed concerns. Pelosi's office declined to comment on whether the visit is moving forward, citing security concerns. The U.S. State Department has called the trip hypothetical. Taiwan's foreign ministry said they noted Biden's remarks and that Taiwan and the U.S. have good mutual trust and smooth communication channels. However, the ministry added that it has not received exact information about a visit by Pelosi to Taiwan and has no further comment. Beijing said on Tuesday that it would respond with forceful measures should Pelosi visit the island and that such a visit would seriously undermine China's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
U.S. President Joe Biden has stopped short of declaring climate change an emergency, but announced a modest package of executive actions aimed at tackling the issue. Speaking in Massachusetts, Biden announced new funding for cooling centers and pushed for new offshore wind projects in the Gulf of Mexico.
So let me be clear. Climate change is an emergency. And in the coming weeks, I'm going to use the power I have as president to turn these words into formal, official government actions through the appropriate proclamations, executive orders, and regulatory power that a president possesses.
Veteran politician Ranil Wickremesinghe was sworn in as Sri Lanka's new president today to take charge of a nation bitterly angry he will remain in power amid an unprecedented economic crisis. Wickremesinghe took his oath of office this morning before the country's Chief Justice at a ceremony held in Parliament. The six-time prime minister had never held the top job, but he easily won the secret ballot of lawmakers on Wednesday to finish the term of former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who fled the country and resigned amid widespread protests last week. While the protesters have focused on the Rajapaksa political dynasty, Wickremesinghe is also unpopular and is seen as an ally of Rajapaksa. Some protesters flocked to the president's office shouting, "Ranil, go home," and vowing never to give up in their quest to bring in new leaders. Russia's foreign minister has warned the West that the Kremlin's war objectives have expanded beyond Ukraine's eastern provinces amid continued U.S. weapon supplies to Kyiv. This as natural gas started flowing again through a major pipeline from Russia to Europe after a 10-day shutdown for maintenance. Nazvi Karim has more.
This HIMARS rocket system from the United States is now a major player in defining the future of Russia's war with Ukraine. With Ukraine using the hardware to stifle enemy advances, the Russians say the war is now about more than the eastern Donbas provinces of Donetsk and Luhansk. They are boasting that they have already received ammunition with a 300-kilometer range. Well, it means that the geographical task will move even further from the current line, said Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Germany, meanwhile, has accused Russia of weaponizing its gas supplies. The flow on the Nord Stream supply pipeline from Russia to Germany resumed on Thursday at 30% capacity. The European Commission advising member countries heavily dependent on Russian gas to reduce consumption by 15%. On the front lines, a 13-year-old boy was killed by a missile strike while waiting for a bus in the northeastern Ukrainian city of Kharkiv. The boy's father knelt by his body holding his hand, with officials saying the teenager was one of 3 people killed. In the southern city of Kherson, Ukrainian forces say they have seriously damaged a bridge used by the Russians as a key supply line. While the Russians accuse Ukraine of using drones to attack the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, Europe's largest, in the city of Enerhoda. They said the plant was functioning normally and no radiation detected. In Washington, Ukraine's First Lady Olena Zelenska made a direct appeal to the Americans for more weapons. You help us, and your help is very strong. While Russia kills, America saves, she said, adding they need the weapons not to wage war, but to protect their home. At a press conference, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said the Pentagon would continue to supply Ukraine with weapons to defend its citizens.
It will be our 16th drawdown of equipment from DoD inventories since August 2021. It will include 4 more HIMARS advanced rocket systems for a total of 16. The Ukrainians have made excellent use of HIMARS, and you can see the impact on the battlefield.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, in his regular address to the nation, said Russia must feel a much higher price for the war to force them to seek peace. He said sanctions were not enough and Europe cannot be held hostage by Russian gas supplies. Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
Still ahead, Anan, the giant panda euthanized at Ocean Park. Welcome back to TVB News. The weather in the UK cooled slightly on Wednesday, one day after the country recorded its highest ever temperature. This comes as wildfires are continuing to tear through Europe, forcing hundreds of people to evacuate their homes while putting extreme pressure on firefighting services. Daniel Rowell tells us more.
French President Emmanuel Macron visited the country's southwestern Gironde region, which has been badly hit by forest fires. He met with firefighters who have been fighting the flames over the past week. The leader of the Gironde Fire Brigade briefed the president on their attempts to control the blaze. Firefighters in the area have created fire breaks through threatened forests. They have deployed heavy machinery to tear out trees and roots, leaving large empty strips to stop the fires from spreading further. At least 36,000 people have been evacuated from the Gironde so far. The fires have torn through around 206 square kilometers of forests there. Furthermore, the French government said wildfires in the country have engulfed 25% more land compared with this time last year. In Spain, clouds of smoke could be seen above the countryside in Sobreros in the central province of Avila as wildfires broke out in the area. Helicopters doused burning vegetation with water in a bid to control the blazes. Around 4,000 local residents remain displaced. Firefighters are continuing to battle flames in the regions of Castile and Leon, Galicia, Aragon, Madrid and Castilla-La Mancha. Some local firefighting services are said to be running close to full capacity. The military has been deployed to help firefighting efforts in 2 regions. In Greece, firefighters said a blaze in the North Athens hillside suburb of Mount Penteli is under control. 500 firefighters fought to contain the blaze as hundreds of local residents were evacuated from their homes. At least 2 of the evacuees have been hospitalized with breathing problems and minor burns. Local officials reported that several houses in the suburb had been burnt down. Daniel Rowell, TVB News.
In the UK, former Chancellor of the Exchequer Rishi Sunak and Foreign Secretary Liz Truss have made it through to the final round of the Conservative Party leadership election. This comes after Trade Minister Penny Mordaunt was leapfrogged by Truss in Wednesday's runoff vote among MPs. Mordaunt had finished ahead of Truss in the first 4 Tory ballots. Conservative Party members will choose between Sunak and Truss in a postal ballot over the summer. The winner will become party leader and hence Britain's new Prime Minister. The result will be announced on September 5th. Outgoing leader Boris Johnson held his last prime minister's questions in the House of Commons on Wednesday. He defended his administration's accomplishments during his time in office while giving some advice to his successor.
I want to use the last few seconds, Mr. Speaker, to give some words of advice to my successor, whoever he or she may be. Number one, stay close to the Americans, stick up for the Ukrainians, stick up for freedom and democracy everywhere. Cut taxes and deregulate wherever you can to make this the greatest place to live and invest, which it is. I've helped to get this country through a pandemic and helped save another country from barbarism. And frankly, that's enough to be going on with. Mission largely accomplished. For now, I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank all the wonderful staff of the House of Commons. I want to thank all my friends and colleagues. I want to thank my right friend opposite, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank everybody here, and hasta la vista, baby. Thank you.
Meantime, Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi resigned today after key coalition allies boycotted a confidence vote, signaling the likelihood of an early election and a period of uncertainty. Draghi tendered his resignation to President Sergio Mattarella, who asked his government to stay on in a caretaker role. Draghi's government of national unity imploded on Wednesday after 3 partners of his uneasy coalition rejected an appeal to complete the legislature's natural term until 2023 and implement its pandemic recovery program. Instead, the center-right parties of Forza Italia and the League and the populist Five-Star Movement boycotted a confidence vote in the Senate, even though Draghi won 95-38. Mattarella is expected to dissolve Parliament and call for an early election as soon as late September or early October. And back here in Hong Kong, the world's oldest male giant panda in captivity, Anan, was euthanized at Ocean Park this morning. The giant panda had been living in the park for 23 years and brought Hong Kongers numerous heartwarming moments. Christy Khan has more.
Photos of Anan were displayed in his empty residence, the Hong Kong Jockey Club Sichuan treasures in the park without his physical presence. That's because around 10 this morning, Ocean Park announced the giant panda's death. Anan was one of the giant pandas given to Hong Kong as a gift by the central government back in 1999. The giant panda, aged 35, the equivalent of 105 years old in human terms, had deteriorating health and stopped eating solid food recently. The park said they had tried to provide medical care to ease his discomfort, but the giant panda's condition had already reached a humane endpoint. After consulting the China Conservation and Research Center for the giant panda, veterinarians from Ocean Park and the Agriculture, Fisheries and Conservation Departments decided to put down Anan. In the morning, some residents rushed to the park to bid farewell to him. This man said the news came so suddenly, but he thanked Anan for bringing fond memories for him as well as his family. Miss Chen, who was a frequent visitor, shed tears when she heard the giant panda had passed away. Anan arrived in Hong Kong with another giant panda, Jia Jia, to celebrate the 2nd anniversary of Hong Kong's handover. According to the park, Anan had to consume around 30 kilograms of food every day. Park staff were arranged to take care of him, such as checking his body temperature and blood pressure. One of the carers once said Anan could recognize his voice and smell as he had spent almost 10 years looking after the giant panda. Anan would have had his 36th birthday next month. The park will have a condolence book so visitors can pay their respects. Alternatively, the giant panda's fans can also leave condolences online to pay tribute to Anan. Christy Khan, TVB News.
And that is the news. Thanks for watching. Bye.